On this episode of The Open Road, things are going to get R-rated. Now, I was told by Honda New Zealand absolutely under no circumstances to take this car to a racetrack, so here we are at Hampton Downs. So it is a little bit cheeky being here at the racetrack, but I thought, hey, this is the Type R, this is the kind of thing that needs to be done around the track at least once. But first, before we get into any of that, let's have a look at the interior of this car. It's a lot more simple than I expected it to be. There are a lot of design options that are very, very modern, which I think, and this is going to correlate to the outside, are going to get outdated quite quickly. But other than a pretty normal entertainment system and a pretty cool dash, it's pretty basic, to be honest. And I'm okay with that because it's supposed to be a race car, so why make it more complicated than it needs to be? The fit and finish is very nice, the seats are very nice, they're very comfy, they're a little bit firm, but me being 6'2" and 100 kilos, I fit this car quite well, which I was surprised about. It's probably at its upper limit of the size of person that's going to be comfortable in this, but I'm comfortable, so I'm happy. A lot of the features on this car are the sort of thing that you would expect. There's a few things that I didn't anticipate. I expected a lane departure warning in the wing mirrors, but instead what it does is when you hit the indicator, it pulls up a little camera so you can see what's behind you, which is over here somewhere. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't think it's overly practical, but I think it's pretty cool. There is a whole area down behind here for plugging in all your stuff, and I thought that was weird at first, but it actually turns out that it's quite practical because all of your big plug-ins and whatever are actually hidden away behind the dash, and it keeps your little center console much more clean and tidy. I actually quite like that. 2 drink holders, not surprising. Air conditioning in this car, pretty good. Not amazing, but pretty good. I quite like the steering wheel, but I feel like the buttons are a little bit... They already feel dated even though they're new, which is a little bit unfortunate, but oh well. In the back, I fit in the back just. You wouldn't want to be in there for a long time, but it's doable. Actually, I haven't even had a look at the boot. Let's go have a look at that. How do you open the boot? We'll talk more about this stuff in a minute. That's surprisingly a lot of space. And this is one of the things I want to talk to you about with this Civic, is that overall this is a much bigger car than what it used to be back in the early 90s. And I don't really know how I feel about that. Best take it for a drive. So Honda did say don't bring this car to a racetrack, but we're already here and we got some cool photos, and I do have to do a whole lap to get back to pit entrance because you can't go the wrong way, so should do it as quick as we can. Two very significant initial thoughts. One, this is underpowered, and two, it doesn't feel like... My experience with cars like Civics has always been, you know, back at the university days, a couple of friends had them, and they were small little cars, front wheel drive, too much power for a little hot hatch, but like silly fun. This is a bigger car with, I think, around the same kind of power, but it's different. It's more refined, which is a good thing, but I don't really know how I feel about it. I feel like this is one of those cars that shouldn't be too refined. It should just be a bit silly. And this isn't. This is actually really sort of serious car. Ah, shit. That gate's locked. Have to go again. While I'm backing out of this, the reversing camera is pretty neat, and the rear visibility is surprisingly good for a hot hatch. We're going to have to go all the way around again. Right, now let's get back onto the open road before Honda finds out that I was here. One thing that I noticed very quickly about this car is it does have various driving modes. It's standard when you start it up, it's in sport mode, but you can flick it up into type R mode, which I haven't noticed a huge amount of difference with. But then you can also put it into comfort mode, which softens up the suspension noticeably. But it's also, when you're driving, it just feels like it's been kicked in the balls. Like, it really does feel like it's restricting a lot of the power of what power there is. I think that Honda's had a very specific idea with this car, and I think that from the idea that they had, it's actually pretty well done. It is quite minimalistic. Like I said, the interior, there's not a huge amount to it, but what's here is very cool and it's very racy and it's very sort of contemporary. And it's the same with the driving. The driving does feel very contemporary and very racy. Alright, let's see how she pulls onto the motorway. I gotta say, it's a little bit underwhelming. You would think the absolute top spec car would have a little bit more to it. There's nothing particularly wrong with the engine. It's actually a really nice engine. I just feel like it should have more power, but it doesn't. Probably the gearbox in this is one of its most redeeming features. I don't like it as much as the GT86 for playing with the gears. There are 6 gears and you do use them all. It's not as playful. It seems a little bit more serious. And the other interesting thing about it is you can be sitting on the motorway like we are at 90 kilometers an hour in 6th gear and put your foot down and it will just keep going all the way up to law-breaking speeds. So you can get up on the torque, which is cool, but it's not playful. I do need to talk to you about the steering though. You guys know I'm not a fan of electronic power steering, and this is no exception. And in fact, this is probably one of my least favorite. And I remember I bagged the steering in the GT86. I actually like that better. There's something really weird going on with the steering in this, where I explained it to Scott, our cameraman, and he said, oh, it's just progressive. I was like, that's what I thought. But it just seems like there's something about it that's not quite right. I don't know if there's actually something wrong with the car or if that's what it's supposed to be, but it feels very twitchy with small maneuvers, which is good, I like that. And then there's sort of this area where it's way less responsive, and then at about 90 degrees, and then all of a sudden you're at full lock. I don't get that. Like, I'd rather they just made it one thing and then you know what to expect. This is unpredictable to the point where I actually quite don't like it at all. And as you may have guessed, there is zero feedback. What else? There really isn't a lot to this car. It's other than looking very ostentatious, shall we say. Other than that, it's actually quite basic. It's not feature rich. It doesn't. I mean, it's got a few cool things on it, like it's got adaptive cruise control, so you can set a speed and it'll just do that or whatever it can do based on what's in front of you. Yeah, I mean, this car is pretty much just, let's make a Civic go fast. And to be fair, the place that I found the most joy in this car was, there's a stretch of road, it's a rural road, it's open, it's windy, it's an open road, and you can have some fun on that road. In fact, I take most test drive cars down that road. That was fun because I got to play with 2nd and 3rd gear. I got to open it right up, I got to brake it hard into corners, and that's when this car really came alive. This car doesn't do particularly well at very low speeds when you're sort of, if you want to fang it around town. First gear is a little bit too short to really have any fun with, so you can't really plant your foot till 2nd. But that being said, it hasn't got the power or the size or the presence of a big sedan to be able to really tackle the open road, or a GT car. So it kind of sits in this strange little niche. And I mean, there's a place for it, and don't get me wrong, I can understand why people would like this car, but to me it just seems like it's so limited. Oh, we're in comfort mode right now, by the way, and that's how bouncy this car is. They got some nice big Brembos on the front of this, and they're very stabby, and I like stabby, especially in a car like this, or especially in a hot hatch. Stabby brakes I think are quite important. The most controversial thing about this car has been the styling. There's parts I like and there's parts I don't. I think that I actually quite like the front of it. I think the front of it kind of looks quite aggressive. It almost looks sort of like from the headlights where it meets the bonnet, kind of almost Audi R8-ish, but more, but like crazier. But it's kind of almost got that kind of a feel to it. And then like the grills behind the front wheels, I don't know if they're functional or not, probably not, but they look cool. But the back, oh, the back is terrible. I don't like the back of it at all. There's just too much. It's too complicated. It's not a nice round shape. It's just, they've just put on some stuff, and then they put on some more stuff, and then they put on some more stuff, and they were like, yeah, it's probably not quite enough, so they put on some more stuff. And it's just too much. So in conclusion, I don't really have one. I understand all the controversy around this car now, and I understand why people don't like it, and I can see why people do like it. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.